Sebastian.
So New Zealand has recently passed the 10th anniversary for its secondary school education system in the form of NCEA. NCEA is great because it allows every secondary student within New Zealand to have access to the same level of secondary school education, regardless of status. This may seem like something that we take for granted, but on an international level, that's quite a big deal. Unfortunately, there's still one part of the New Zealand secondary school experience that remains slightly unequal. I'm talking about resources that are available to students. Many schools maintain personal physical libraries with a different amount of resources in them. When I'm talking about resources, I'm talking about things like scientific journals to reference, history books to cite, or just textbooks. Because lots of schools maintain these personal physical libraries, there's a great disparity between schools in terms of what resources their students have access to. Fortunately, there is a pretty decent partial solution to this problem that already exists in the form of the internet. Now, the internet is great because everybody can contribute to it and everybody can extract off it, and all academic resources at some point in their lifespan are incredibly likely to eventually end up on the internet. So this sort of fixes that, it makes it more egalitarian in the sense that everyone has access to the same amount of resources. Unfortunately, I feel there are a couple of problems with relying solely on the internet to distribute these academic resources, stemming principally from the fact that the internet is a really ginormous place. So this Eric Schmidt estimates the size of the internet at roughly 5 million terabytes or 5 exabytes of data. Only 0.0004% of which actually consists of learning material or academic material, things to use in schools. So it's horribly inefficient for students to have to trawl through such a large amount of data in order to find a very small percentage of information. The other problem that comes from using the internet is that in many cases copyright law and international law hasn't quite caught up to the level of technology that the internet is operating on. I'm going to use this example of the Pirate Bay. This is a site some of you may have heard of. What it's principally used for is people contribute any kind of media they want that are then put on the Pirate Bay servers, and then anybody can extract that information. This is, in most countries, completely illegal. Unfortunately, the attorneys for Pirate Bay have a surprisingly solid defense. What they say is, well, our servers that we host this information on are based in Sweden, and Sweden has incredibly liberal copyright laws. Therefore, we're simply abiding by the law of the land and are conducting our business legally. So this is an example of the international nature of the internet holding back our ability to distribute resources as we please. If we could operate in such a manner that we could distribute digital resources on a national level without having to distribute them internationally, we could do what the Pirate Bay does and distribute these things ad infinitum and reproduce them as many times as we wanted. So this is my solution to the problem. It's called a closed shell system. So to explain this, this is basically a picture of the internet. This is the internet. What I want to focus on is those small bits that those arrows are pointing at that are sort of a bit subsectioned off. Those are actually countries like Russia and China where the internet isn't completely connected to the outside bits of the internet, and this is quite similar to what a closed shell system is. And this is sort of similar to what I want to implement in New Zealand. So this is a chain of comparisons between different forms of systems. The one in the bottom left is the closed shell system. Now, the beauty of having a closed shell system is that it is quite literally impossible to access this system outside of its geographic point of origin. So people from America could not access a closed shell system that was operating within New Zealand. So what does this mean for distributing resources? Well, what I propose to do is that we can digitalize academic resources and then host them on a closed shell system like that one shown. This would allow students all over New Zealand to extract their resources and learning materials from the same centralized system. And the fact that this closed shell system would only operate within the confines of New Zealand means that we would be able to reproduce these resources as much as we wanted, so long as the government or those operating the closed shell system own the copyright to these resources. So it's different from a library in the sense that, you know, if you go to a library and the book you want to study is out, then you're sort of out of luck for a couple of weeks until it's returned. But with a closed shell system, we can reproduce the copy as many times as we like, both to its digital nature and to our right over the copyright. So this is sort of a simplified version of what the exact model that I'm proposing of executing. So the academic resources exist, which could be published absolutely anywhere internationally. The Ministry of Education can then purchase the copyright, but the copyright only in New Zealand, of these resources. Resources again can be put on my closed shell system called Alexandria and distributed all throughout the country. This will create a much more egalitarian society in the sense that everyone will be able to access the same information on a very regular basis. The reason I feel that Alexandria is a really good idea that could advance New Zealand as a scientific society is that not only is it a standalone idea that uses the bleeding edge of computer science to distribute resources to secondary school students, but it also allows for further scientific growth within the country. Not only will our education system as a whole get better, because students all over New Zealand have a better quality of education due to more resources available, but this will also be a catalyst for future ideas to come forth because of the fact that New Zealanders will have access to a really large wealth of information, and this will do great things for the New Zealand economy in the sense that young minds who have great ideas will want to come and work in New Zealand because of the fact that they have access to such a great breadth of information available to them through this closed shell system. Thank you.